Okay, so we are recording for those that have signed up but aren't able to join. For those of you who are here, as I said, if you've got questions, if there are things that you were hoping to find out or information that you were trying to kind of gather as part of this session, do use the Q&A. I don't think the chat's functional, and I'm not sure why we can't see faces, but I'm assuming that you can all see me. I'd like to say that that's a nice start, but it feels a bit lonely. So yeah, my name's Shirley Miles, one of the co-founding directors of Go for Growth. Thank you. That makes me feel better. Just a little thumbs up there. And also co-founding director of Net Positive Futures, which is a sustainability consultancy. We have been working on sustainability, and I've personally been working on sustainability for over 20 years. So have helped many teams and many organizations to get to grips with what sustainable business, responsible business, social responsibility, social value, etc., look like in practice. I describe myself usually as a no-nonsense Yorkshire woman, just as a shortcut to say this is a really practical way of thinking about responsible business. This is about just trying to cut through lots of the terminology, lots of the language, and help people to make sense of it in their own context, which is what I always do. So last week I was up working with some MBA students at the University of Newcastle, where I'm been working as part of the exec education team. And we were talking about responsible leadership, and they were all from businesses of all sizes, shapes and types. And it's the same conversation. So it isn't, we just tailor how we talk about it, really. So I don't have loads of slides, but I do have a few. I am really relying on when I say it would be great to hear from you, that you do chip in. So I'll share just a few just to get us started, and we'll take things from there. So the session is talking about responsible business, which is one of those terms that covers a bit of a multitude of things, which we will get into as we go through. Can we move along? Yep. So welcome and introductions. Who's here? What we're going to be talking about? Will you be able to ask questions? I'm assuming you've got the sense of that already, and what support there is available after the session. We're quite a small group. It is really useful to know who's here. Sometimes on these sessions, it's not what you hear from me that's important, it's what you hear from other people. If I can ask you really quickly just to take your mic off, and I'll maybe just direct people to do this. I'm going to start with you, John, just giving you fair warning. Just to open your mic up, say who you are, what your role is, and maybe why you're here. That would be massively helpful. Thank you.
John Mellor, I'm a key account manager with Barnsley Council, supporting businesses through enterprise in Barnsley. I also work with Go for Growth, but it's what I'm here is what other questions business have got, but also how I can feed this into some of my accounts. For businesses who are starting to get on the bandwagon supplying local authorities, and it's surprising the number of businesses that are doing social value things but don't realise they're doing it, and just how we can make them more aware what is required and what they're already doing that can be used towards it.
What counts? Brilliant. Thanks, John. Paul, could you say hello and tell us who you are, please?
Yeah, if I'm the Paul in question, my name's Paul. I'm director at a company called Code Building Solutions. We're currently doing some work in Barnsley at the theatre, Civic Theatre, and it's just a case of us keeping abreast of what's current and getting as much information as we can.
That's brilliant. Thank you. That's great. Emma R. No, might come back to Emma. Farid. Oh, not got everybody on my list. Obi.
Hi, Cheryl. Good morning. My name is Obi. I'm Director of Business Development, William Black Limited. We are into product design and innovation. We are looking into diversifying into public sector services, and we conscious of the environment and sustainability as well. So we're trying to see what we could understand how to give back to the society where we operate in.
Perfect, thank you very much, Obi. That's great. Not brilliant sound, but I got product design and trying to do your bits. That's really helpful. Mark, I've got a Mark.
Hello, sorry, I've gone on mute then.
That's fine.
My name's Mark Revel, Director of Revel Electrical in Bolton. I'm here today to learn, really, take some knowledge away, and I'm currently putting the business in a position whereby it can trade in the public sector through correct accreditations and its processes. So yeah, I'm here today to learn, really, and take some knowledge away.
Thanks, Mark. That's really helpful. Kerry.
Hi everyone. So yeah, I work at the Mayoral Combined Authority in South Yorkshire, and I'm in the sustainability team. And my role is to look at housing retrofit, so the decarbonisation of our homes. So I'm relatively new to sustainability, and I'm very new to retrofit. So I think I wanted to come on the call really to help start understanding about social value and responsible practices, because in my demonstrators I'm going to need to create a kind of impact and evaluation framework, and it mustn't just be about economic growth. So it's trying to sort of widen my horizons, really, so I can apply it to that. Thanks.
Thank you, that's really helpful. Who haven't I? Oh, I've got another Kerry. I've got a Kerry Fletcher. Do you want to say hello, Kerry? No, I'm going to keep moving. Tracy.
Morning, I'm Tracy from RC Graphics. We're a signage specialist based in Barnsley. Just popped on this morning just to learn as much as we can really about the topic, a bit of internal kind of reviewing of what we're doing and look for opportunities to improve and expand on what we're doing really going forward.
Thanks, Tracy. That's
Thank
really
you.
Thank you. And then I've got Maya.
Hi. So
Hi.
joining a bit late.
Okay.
We are. My name is Maya. I am the co-founder of Mont 58 Coffee. We're a coffee roastery. We have sustainability as a big part of our business, and I really wanted to kind of learn how this could fit into sort of our growth plans in terms of the supply chains and public sector.
That is brilliant. Okay, thank you so much for just saying hello. It makes me feel less like I'm on my own. We've got a couple of comments in the Q&A from people who are having a few issues and also just popping in with who they are and where they're from. So we've got someone from industrial services. That's useful for me just to give a sense of how to frame the next bit. So that's who's here. What are we going to be talking about? We're going to be talking about, well, all of those things that you've mentioned, really. Responsible business, what's important, things like social value, what it is, why it's important, the gaps between where businesses are and where they need to be in order to supply into the public sector. And then I'm going to be taking questions all the way through. So if you have got anything in Q&A, that's great. I'll pick those up as we go through. And then I'm going to flag the support that we've got through Go for Growth to help you sort of continue on your journey. What we're not doing and what we never do in these sessions is sell follow-on services. So any support that I'll reference will be completely free. And actually it's just not the business model. This is all paid for support. So if you have got questions, it is a really good time to just get those raised. Okay, so moving my slides along. We've got absolutely loads of definitions and lots of different terminology out in the world. We've got responsible business, we've got sustainable business, we've got green business, we've got corporate social responsibility. We talk about social value. pop into the chat any that you use or you've heard, and we can just make sure that we're all talking about the same things. I very often use a slide just covered in different language sets for this kind of section. And there are absolutely loads of different ways that people talk about sustainability. And they're none of them wrong. They are all generally, when you boil them down, talking about the same things. So it can be really confusing if you come into this for the first time to think, oh, well, I'm not talking about, I need to add something in on social value because I've not talked about that. But we usually talk about responsible business, or my customers like to know about green business. Where does that fit in? One of the things I'm always going to do is be really, really honest. And in honesty, it doesn't matter what you call it. It matters what you understand the term to mean, and it matters what you do that you put into that bucket of responsible business or sustainable business. It matters that you think about why you use those terms, because sometimes in a particular sector, there's more of a prevalence on one language set than another. So if you are wanting to work with a local authority and they focus purely on social value, then you might need to tailor to that language set. But that doesn't mean that the things that you are doing in terms of responsible business or sustainable business are wrong. It just means you have to kind of understand that the things very often at the basics, the activities are the same. So what's usually missing is a little bit of confidence that you understand what is included in the terms that you're using, and you understand what is asked for with your stakeholders or your potential clients, and that you make sure that you can do the piece of work which joins the dots. And that's really what we're going to look at in this session. So at the very heart of this, we've got economic, social, and environmental challenges. We've got economic, social, and environmental impacts. And very broadly, we've got positive impacts and we've got negative impacts. And the work of a responsible or sustainable business really is to take account of all of these things and understand the role of your business in addressing or mitigating them. Or if it's a positive impact, finding a way to do more of that thing. It tends to be about understanding the way your organization, your business, your teams operate, and then thinking through, and usually in a fairly logical way, where you might have impact. So if you are a product designer, you might have opportunities to make products that are more environmentally sound right from the very start, and you can design out some waste. If you are buying in products and services, if you are buying in coffee beans that maybe aren't grown in the UK, you can think about the supply chain element. So all of this is very broadly a kind of mental model. And it can sound really challenging and technical, but it's the very basics of it are, what impacts does my business, my product, my process, my team have? And then what can I do about that? And there are loads of ways that you can kind of bring these things together. So you'll hear a lot often in the sustainability world about the three pillars of sustainability, and these where they overlap, where the socioeconomic overlaps, where the environmental and economic overlaps, and where all three overlap is where you have things that are sustainable practices, sustainable processes, sustainable activities, or businesses themselves. So you can think about this at lots of different levels. You can think about this in terms of a procurement, a thing that you are going to buy, and how you can make sure that one thing you buy, you are buying as sustainably as possible, or you can think of it across your entire organization. So it can get complicated, but at the basics are fairly straightforward. Have any of you seen these? Let's see if we can use these hands up, hands, thumbs up type icons. Are we aware of the Sustainable Development Goals? We've got a hand up, brilliant. So at least one of you's seen these. So these are global sustainability goals Maya, if it's just a hands up to say you've seen them, that's brilliant. Thank you. If you've got a question, stick it in the Q&A and I'll pick it up from there. If any of you are using these in your businesses, that'd be really useful to know. These are Sustainable Development Goals developed by the United Nations. So they are a way of articulating sustainability. I talk about sustainability, responsible business, social value as entirely interchangeable terms, because for the purposes of this session, it is all of them and each of them individually. But the Sustainable Development Goals, I have found, I've been doing this for over 20 years, I've found these to be a really useful way of thinking about sustainability at the highest level. So thinking about the big picture. So these are global goals. These have been agreed by the United Nations. I think there's 32 nations that have collaborated on what are the different elements that make up sustainability. So if you are thinking about developing a sustainability strategy, or you're thinking about how you would incorporate sustainability or what it means at this foundation level, this is a really, really sensible place to start. The work that I tend to do with teams, whether they are thinking about embedding sustainability in a process, in a policy, or in an organizational context, is think about which of these, when you look at 17 is a lot of goals, there's a lot going on here. Think of these as a kind of a starting point, as a bit of a sense check. Which one of these really hops out in terms of, well, my organization is all about health and well-being. So we've got people on this call that are working in industry, in innovation. We might have people that are focused on health and well-being projects. So there might be one of these or a couple of these that really strongly resonate right from the very start. Behind each of these 17 goals, so this is the highest level, there are lots of targets and other elements, and some of them can't be undertaken unless you are a fairly significant organization. Some of them are for nations to grapple with, but as a whole, as a way of thinking, actually sustainability is all these things. They are really very helpful. So when I use these with teams, and I often use these with teams where they don't know anything about sustainability, and I did work with a team fairly recently where somebody told me very bluntly that she was not remotely bothered about the environment, and therefore sustainability had absolutely nothing to do with her, until it turned out that all of her work was about gender equality. And actually, Sustainable Development Goal number 5 is all about gender equality. So this is not just environmental, this is that environmental, social and economic. I was chatting to another guy, he came from a bank. Again, didn't really think that there was a particular environmental or sustainability focus to his work. But obviously, if you are talking about decent work and economic growth and you work in that particular industry, then you can see really clearly that that is something that's important. I'm interested also in the individual element, particularly for smaller businesses where there's often a connection between the human and the business. So what does it mean to you to be a responsible business? That follows through into your teams. If you can use things from the Sustainable Development Goals that help people to make sense of sustainability on a human level, that can be really important as well. So this is I'm just showing a tool really, a tool that I use to help people understand that we are not just talking about sustainability as environment. And actually, when you do drill down, the climate action and the life below water and life on land are a relatively small part of what is clearly a much bigger picture. Anyone think that these might be useful to help them frame sustainability in their organization or with their teams, or that they help them to understand sustainability in a way that they didn't previously? So if I go with those hands up, thumbs up things again. Yeah, good. They can be used to frame entire strategic direction. We've developed a few sustainability strategies over the past couple of years that have used these as a way of differentiating between the different parts of sustainability. I also like this next slide, which is those exact same goals, but articulated back in that environment, society, economy. So just showing that those 3 pillars are absolutely still covered, but they're just pulled out into a little bit more detail. And the way, this is my sort of wedding cake or donut diagram. It's usually a food element in there somewhere with me. That actually everything is built on a finite planet, a finite biosphere. So again, in terms of having some of those conversations, that can be really useful. In terms of thinking about, so this this slide can be the start of all sorts of conversations. Kerry, you've got a question?
Yeah, I was just going to make a comment actually. It might just be quite helpful to think about it, because this is really useful to me to like see it through a different lens. So say for retrofit, which is essentially housing renovation and construction.
Yeah.
There's just loads more elements like looking at this. So for example, if you retrofit your home, then you're going to probably reduce the say issues of cold and damp and mold. So that's for good health and well-being. Then also you've got helping make your city more sustainable, and about the sort of the partnership element. And then interestingly, so for example, the workforce in construction is very male dominated, and it would be great to have more opportunities for women and people with disabilities. So then you're perhaps looking at gender equality and some others. So I just wanted to say thanks, because I think it's going to be a useful way to do the initial sort of setting out of what I'm trying to achieve.
Thanks, Kerry. Yeah, absolutely. And what almost always happens, well, not almost always, always happens, is that people do very quickly see that these are interconnected, because you can't just look at gender equality without taking into account other inequalities because of their sort of intersectional nature. You can't talk about responsible consumption and production without linking that to industry, innovation and infrastructure. So it just provides you with lots of really useful lenses to think about, well, what does the whole look like? Because that helps you to not get too hung up on just one area. Sustainability is all about this, or my business is all about that. So again, the session that I delivered a session last week, and we had quite a few people from the offshore wind and offshore energy from the northeast coast. And so their focus, their business, their work focus was very much around affordable and green energy. But they saw very quickly that there were links to other goals. And when you do unpack these, there is a lot more going on. So we're starting to get, although I said we'll keep it really basic, we'll look at the fundamentals and the building blocks of sustainability. You don't have to scratch the surface very deeply to find that there is lots of complexity and interconnectedness. But it can start from a very simple way of understanding these big challenging issues. So in terms of your business activities, or in terms of your priorities at the moment, it's worth reflecting on whether or not you have got a particular priority that is environmental, whether it's more social and community, whether you think yours is economic. I'm interested in whether anyone wants to share what they're thinking about in terms of just those high level, where their focus or where their potential areas for activities might be from a sustainability or a sustainable business point of view. Anyone want to share? Kerry, do you want to come back in on your, because you're looking at the whole but through a particular refurb lens? Is there a particular priority? Is there a
to be honest, all of them. I think so. Just to give some context, John Mellor was in this workshop that we ran in Barnsley. So we had about 40 people looking at the challenges around retrofit, which now extend to about 12 pages. And so they naturally encompass environment, because we're trying to decarbonise. And also probably as part of, say, net zero neighbourhoods, have kind of green spaces as part of that. And then that links to social and community, you know, making better places for people to live. And then economic in terms of the supply chain and skills development. So it's really all of them. But again, that is giving me a useful basis to think about, like, how all encompassing it is, how it spreads across all of the areas, but maybe could help us kind of shape the strategy in alignment with each of those areas.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is usually a combination of all of them. Slightly different question then. Did anyone come this morning thinking that actually there would be a much stronger focus on one of these areas? Probably environmental, if I was putting words into people's mouths. Did you think there was likely to be more of a focus on environmental? When you think about sustainability or responsible business, do you think that the tendency is to think of it as environmental? Anything to add on that? I'm interested in out, John. Do you want to pop in?
Yeah, I think what I find with businesses is they do focus on, I'm not saying they focus on one thing, but they focus on one thing at a time. They don't join them together. So yeah, there's initiatives. When they say sustainability, businesses see it as that. Oh yeah, that's doing net zero, carbon reduction, things like. They don't see the joined up that they're actually hitting several of these with what they're doing, but and I think that's partly down to people like ourselves in the councils and the local authorities, focusing on things that can be supported and can be prioritised, and businesses get caught up in, oh yeah, we've got to focus on that, and they don't see it as a whole. And that's, I try to help businesses with that, saying, yeah, you've got to look at the bigger picture, but they do tend to focus on one or two aspects at a time.
Yeah, no, I think that's fair. And it comes back to, for me, it comes back to the sort of storytelling element. And we'll talk about that at the end. And I don't mean storytelling as in we make it up, but actually that when you are confident about sustainability and you understand your own business and where its impacts are, that helps you to tell the story of how you are addressing sustainability in the round, or are a responsible business, or are demonstrating social value across these different areas. I'm interested in is the coffee roaster still on the call? I'm just interested in the more social and community elements. Maya, do you want to speak to that a little bit?
Yes, I think for us, like the others have said, it's sort of all of these things. So in terms of social and community, I see it both in the supply chain of where we buy our coffee beans from, but also in what we do here in the UK. So in terms of where we buy the beans, I think it's for us, it's things like making sure that, first of all of our coffee is fair trade. But I think it's more than that. We try to source coffee that specifically supports various social improvement stuff in the countries where the coffee is grown. So, for example, we buy beans from Peru, which are farmed by an old woman, a female cooperative, which then gives these women, control over the revenue, and they can invest it in betterment projects in their own countries.
Yeah.
So that's sort of on that side. And then here in the UK, we are a living wage employer. So we try to support our team here, and we try to employ local people to us, and also get involved in quite a lot of community projects. So we're sponsoring the local football. It's a League 10 football team, like voluntary football team, and we try to get involved in other initiatives to do with that. So that's how we look at this aspect of our business.
Yeah, that's really useful. Thank you for sharing that, Maya. I think the other end of the spectrum is, okay, so if you do understand this and you have already got some of those basic building blocks in place, how can you really squeeze the value of that? So you might think that there's an easy win or an easy box to tick, and that might be accreditation. So it might be fair trade, and that might then mean that quite a lot of the basics are covered off for you, and you can prove that. So we'll talk about that accreditation. But there are still ways that you can add different layers to that. So you might be a fair trade, you might buy fair trade coffee, but if you have staff in your own country, in your own shops, then that living wage accreditation is another layer, isn't it? So there's all the time sort of building on this, and I think that might be something that feels a little bit disheartening, but it's to understand that this is about constant improvement. So if you've been focused on as a sort of indicator of economic responsibility, you've been offering apprenticeships, for example, or work placements, but you always take your work placements from really good schools where they've got very few socioeconomic challenges. That's not that's a bad thing, or that box isn't the right one to tick, but actually a more challenging and more impactful experience might be for somebody from a disadvantaged group or from a school with more challenges. So does that make sense? I think that if you are looking for constant improvement, there are ways to keep getting better, I think is what I'm trying to say at this juncture, because clearly there's a spectrum from we're just trying to get our heads around this and understand the basics, and then actually if you've already done some of those, how do you push yourself to get better? So thinking about your priorities, and these change, don't they? So business priorities change on a weekly, monthly basis, but depending on how often you are thinking about where you are putting your efforts, you've got opportunity to build something from a sustainability or responsible business perspective into that way of working. I'm sharing that this is a bit more of a sort of technical slide, and it's relatively new. It comes from a way of thinking that's around sort of donut economics, and the slides will be shared, but I think there are lots of ways of thinking about the complexity, and sometimes finding these images that just help us to understand how to think about some of this stuff, and how to make sure that you don't go too far in one direction or another, because that's the balance, isn't it? And that sustainability and responsible business is about the balance between profit, people and planet, and actually that they are in constant motion. So it isn't an easy, quick, you've done one thing and you've ticked the box and you move on. It is about constantly being in that space of trying to do the best you possibly can in a system that's all the time moving. And I think I just like to include a few things to help people think about the big picture, how easy it is to break it down into the sensible building blocks, but then that there is complexity to grapple with. And you're already always dealing with dynamic business processes, changes, etc. So thinking about how to build this into your existing business operations can be really useful. And the ways that you do it might be different, well, will be different probably to other types of business. So you might have a focus on or a culture of certification, for example. That might be how your organization proves what it's doing. Sorry, John, is your hand up? Have you got a question, or is it an old hand?
No, it's an old hand.
Oh,
Sorry.
No, that's fine. So certification might be an option, and there are ways to think about which certification and what's appropriate. So there might be some conversations to be had around that. If you don't need the certification, and sometimes certification processes can be expensive and time consuming and resource intensive, and you might only do them if there's a particular driver, if you're wanting to win a particular tender or a particular stakeholder is asking for them, you can still think of sustainability as an opportunity to embed excellence into your policy, process, practice, into your people, into your training opportunities. The way I think about it with teams very often is that it's an opportunity to demonstrate excellence, because if you are, and you don't have to talk about sustainability actually, because if you're an excellent business, you are looking at future trends, you are thinking about resources and where things come from and supply chains, and making sure that you get the best products. You can tell a story of what sets your products and services apart. So excellence might be a useful lens to think about this through. That also works really nicely with teams for me. So you might say to somebody, do you want to be a sustainable, whatever they are, bricklayer, furniture designer, and that might not feel like something they want to do. But if you ask them if they want to be excellent, or if you ask a team that if they are interested in striving for excellence, that can be much easier to kind of help people think about sustainability in a way that is comfortable. Competitive advantage is quite an interesting one. I think people that are I had a call from a business a little while ago who asked me how he could become a real pioneer in sustainability. It's like, well, you'd need to invent a time machine and go back about 30 years, because the pioneers have been doing this for some time. And actually, if you are only just thinking about sustainability, the benefit of that is that the chances are people have already done some of these things, and your job is just to work out what the best looks like and then apply it. If you are looking for competitive advantage and you are interested in that innovation, I don't mean there isn't lots of innovation still to be had. There are certainly lots of things that we need to still make happen. But that's a slightly different way of thinking about it. So you know for your business what those drivers are. It might be compliance, it might be keeping staff, retention, recruitment, it might be winning new work. I'm interested in where there are opportunities in your core business drivers to kind of embed some sustainability. I don't know if anyone's got any thoughts on that. Anything from our who was doing internal reviews? John?
I think a lot of businesses, it's about them getting to think that they've got to, it's every decision point they've got is, are they thinking in a sustainable manner? Are they considering it? If it's the right time, but or it's not quite the right time. But if every decision making process they go through is, if they've got a sustainability question in there, then at least they're moving forward and they're continually pushing to include it in their business management of their business. And I find businesses are doing that and moving forward at quite a rate, actually.
Yeah, it's a really good point. And actually, we talk about sustainability a lot as a mental model. It is just something to think about. And again, that makes it sound really simple, but it doesn't have to be more complicated than that. The trick is thinking about it at the right time. So you're absolutely right, John. It doesn't really matter whether it's a policy that you are building sustainability into. If you're writing a new policy, business policy, you would probably include some sustainability these days. If you are updating or doing some kind of internal review and you're doing that without including sustainability, something's gone a little bit awry. When you've got a decision-making process, or you're redesigning something, or you're looking for to bring a product or a service to market, building sustainability into that and having those thoughts. But it can be more basic than that. It could be something that becomes a standing agenda item at your at meetings. It might be that you include it as part of your business governance, and force yourself to be thinking about these things. There's lots of different ways to include sustainability. If you're training your staff, does sustainability get a mention? So yeah, I think it's just once you kind of get your antennae out to be thinking about it, you'll find that there are places to just ask the question, have we thought about have we included sustainability? Have we taken the opportunity to consider our environmental, social and economic impact, or the impact of this particular decision? Okay. This, I don't know if you've seen this image, perhaps if you're not a sustainability person, you won't have come across it. There is a real focus at the moment, and a couple of you have mentioned it, on decarbonisation, on becoming net zero in terms of carbon. There's a focus on carbon, which is absolutely appropriate. But there are lots of other elements to sustainability. So just kind of ending where we started, really, in terms of that overarching sustainability includes lots of things. So if your sustainability activity or your responsible business activities are purely focused on the carbon, the chances are you're missing something. Equally, if you're not looking at your carbon or decarbonising or thinking about how to decarbonise, you are likely to be also missing a bit of a trick. So just sharing that slide as a prompt for that kind of thinking, really. And then I'm interested in where, having heard a quick overview of what's included within sustainability, why it might be useful, how it might relate to existing business practice, what gaps you think you've got, what might still be helpful. So as we've said, there is support from Go for Growth, there is support from other places, John representing Barnsley specifically, but lots going on right across the UK on things like that. Anyone want to share what they're thinking in terms of a gap for moving forward? Kerry, you coming in, and then Mark?
For me personally, it's a huge new horizon that I need to take on step by step, really, and this little introduction is a great way to start that. So yeah, it's just a huge picture that we need to start absorbing, and in many parts of, really. So yeah, thank you.
No, that's useful, Mark. So there are some tools that will help with that. And if you do have a look on that, I'll put the Go for Growth website up in a minute. There are ways that I can point you at some things that are easy as a sort of entry level to sustainability. Don't let anyone tell you that it's too complicated not to, get to grips with, because it's not. That we can definitely help to make that easier. And don't let it feel too daunting, because actually you are probably already doing some stuff. It is just about making a plan that kind of pulls everything together. That's useful. Kerry, sorry, you had a hand up. Sorry, are you coming back, Mark?
No, I was just going to say thank you. Yeah, that's great. Appreciate that.
No problem. We'll make sure that that's shared with the resources associated with the slides when they go out. Kerry, what are you thinking?
It's more, I mean, this is really helpful. Thank you. Just, yeah, it's really given that kind of big picture and helped me kind of step back. I think more than anything that's on my mind is just my need is to build capacity. At the moment, it's just me working on this. There's lots of people doing it, but on my project, and the other combined authorities have a lot bigger teams, and it's how can we use this kind of to build a case for just getting more people on it in the region.
Yeah, resourcing and capacity is a really significant issue, and I spend a lot of my time in that space, Kerry, to be honest.
Okay, right.
There are still ways to have, I mean, having these conversations with the right people in the right way at the right time can be transformational.
Mm-hmm.
To get a group of business owners or people with chunky parts of the business aware of and thinking about sustainability is obviously the starting point, but having those conversations right through an organization and working out how to resource that is where I spend a lot of my time, let's put it that way. But what works is trying things. So that being pilots, I love a pilot. Let's test it and then make the case for it and roll it out. That would be my takeaway for somebody in your position, probably.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Thank you.
Fab, anyone else? Maya, are you coming in?
Yeah. I think for us as a small business, I think because we set out the business with these things in mind already, I think for us it's almost at the moment I find where the gap is not so much in the doing the things, because we do a lot of it. It's in showing it, in measuring it and formalizing a lot of it. And that takes, as Kerry was saying, for big business, but also for small business, that takes a lot of resource. And our resource is running our business. So we tend to do a lot of the things, but then, to sit down and, measure it properly and report on it properly and being able to then use it when we do bids or I find that quite challenging.
Yeah, I think that's a really fair point, and it's the reason that the last bullet on here is developing your story, because I think you're right. And I mean, what would you rather? I would always rather that people were busy doing this stuff and the job was to work out how to tell that story, rather than we're not doing it yet and we don't know where to start. So I think that's a better challenge, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
I mean, we're a tiny micro business, and the honest truth is that you do just have to find a way to build it into the stuff you're already doing. And it might be, in your case, it might be having your customers and your stakeholders understand the story so that they can help share some of that rather than the formal reporting. Because there's as much power in that as there is in the numbers. Now, John might disagree in terms of actually winning tenders. You will evidence some of that, but I think sometimes the story can be a really powerful part of the reporting. So don't underestimate what you've already done.
Thank you.
We've got a couple more minutes. Anybody at John's hand's back up?
Yeah, I think that's something the local authorities are going to take on board as well, in terms of enabling people to tell the story. So I'm working with the procurement team as well to enable a bit of flexibility in how they get it out of the businesses, because people are doing it. Some know they're doing it and positive, but they don't capture it. And I think so the local authorities are going to take that on board. But the businesses, if you're doing it, then part of your improvement is to put in place your procedures, your processes that capture what you're doing, so as a business that you're doing it and you're looking to improve that and improve your responsibility as a business, so that it's part of your business goals to grow and develop your responsibility, your sustainability issues. So I think it does come. The key, and I think what we've got out this morning, hopefully what people got, is to look at it as a bigger picture and look at it as a whole, because that enables you to tell the story better. It also helps you to focus on what you can be doing going forward and developing the story and the plan going forward.
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think just a last kind of tip on that, Maya. So we do quite a bit of sort of supply chain activity, and there's a difference between feeling like you've got to backdate everything And then actually from whatever point, this point on, we will improve our processes so that that's captured automatically. So, and I think John's right, looking at where is there opportunity within the process from now on to capture as part of your, well, we buy this and it cost us that, but there's another impact we want to capture, and just starting to capture. So I think the kind of overarching message is, wherever you are, getting started means something slightly different. If you've already done lots of good stuff, it might be just starting to improve a process, which will help you further down the line. If you haven't started yet, then I'm just going to give a very last plug for the Go for Growth website, where there are opportunities to access tools and resources that will help you to take your next step, whatever that looks like for you. I think I'm just going to stop sharing my screen. And I'm very sorry I couldn't see faces, but just to thank you for your time, really. Hopefully that's been useful. An hour spent talking about responsible business on a Monday morning is quite a big ask. If there's anything I did on the slides, but I'm easy to find because I've got a silly name. If you do want to connect and keep an eye out on the things that we're up to and the stories that we tell, and we only really tell stories from businesses like yours rather than tell our stories. So be in touch if you think there's anything that we can do to assist, and make sure that you are accessing all of the resources on the Go for Growth website, because they really will help. Hopefully that's been useful. I will leave you all to the rest of your Monday. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Larissa. Bye.
Right, Shirley. Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you.